Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. You guys know what time it is. It is time for the end of the month, which means it is time for another reading wrap up. We are going to be tackling my July and August reading wrap up. Now, this month I had some pretty good books, honestly, more so in July than August. August came out with some 4 stars, not too bad, but in terms of like reading in July, I believe I read 8 books, and then in August I read 6 books, but I have the stats right here on my phone to confirm or deny as well. So in July, like I said, I read 8 books in total, reading 3,020 pages in total, and then for genres, I read 4 romances, 2 thrillers, 1 science fiction, and 1 fantasy. And the formats that I read in it, 7 of them were in the physical form, most of them by means. The only one that wasn't in the physical form was I believe the Ministry of Time, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Then 1 on the Kindle, and then some of the other ones were audiobook, more specifically. So we had that, so that was fun. And then my favorite of July will be Atmosphere. I'm going to get into a little bit about that. And then for August, like I said, I read 6 books in August, reading 2,233 pages in total, with the genres being 2 dark romances, 1 romance specifically, 1 horror, 1 memoir, and 1 fantasy. Most of the formats that I did were audiobook versions, but I did have some physicals and some Kindle books. And my favorite for August was Scythe Sparrow, in which I will dive into that later. So let's dive into the first book that I finished in July, which was The Ministry of Time by Kaylee Ann Bradley. Now, this book, I give it a 4 star when I originally read it. I really liked the storyline. I liked what we were like doing with these characters, and I originally got this recommendation from Haley Pham. This is one of her favorite books of all time, and I thought it was pretty good. But thinking back to it in the moment, I think since thinking on this now, if I were to change my rating, it would honestly be a 3.5, because I will say the quotes were fabulous. The quotes were amazing in this book, but there was something about it that wasn't quite keeping my attention. And one of the things that I really did like about this was that we don't get to know the female main character's name at all during the story. Like, we never know what her name is, and it's something that I've never really read before in a book, especially something along this line. But basically what this book, it's kind of a little bit self-explanatory, but you have the ministry in England. They have figured out time travel, and our female main character gets a job to become this thing called a bridge, where specifically bridges are meant to guide these expats, people who the ministry have taken from history to basically study if human bodies can withstand time travel, essentially. And it's told through 2 storylines. It's told through specifically with our female main character, and then also through Commander Graham Gore, who's known as 1847, and he was known to have died on Sir John Franklin's doomed 1845 expedition to the Arctic. So it kind of like details what his story was like when that was going on. And it was fine, I guess. I don't really remember many of like the details, but if I were to pull up like my Kindle notes, then maybe I could pull out some really good quotes. But other than that, it was a fine read. I probably would actually give it a 3.5 now, or maybe even a 3.75 actually. Yeah, I think I'll actually dumb it down to a 3.75 instead of just a 4 star, because it was okay, but like thinking back on it, I'm like, I don't think I would give that a 4 star now after reading it and finishing it at the beginning of the month. So that's the first book down. And then the second book that we have is actually a reread when I was kind of going through a little bit of a slump, and I meant to try and finish this in Pride Month, but it just didn't work out that way. But that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I first read this book back in 2023 and gave it a 5-star. It took me maybe 2 months to finish it because I was first getting back into reading. No. Wait, 2023? Yeah, it was 2023. Wow, I had to think there for a second. But I first read it, really, really loved it. This was my first introduction to LGBTQ plus literature, and I really, really loved it, as y'all can see by the multiple tabs that we have going on. There was just so much of this story that I truly, truly enjoyed, and because it's one of those stories where I feel like a lot of the times you can feel like you're not reading the same thing at all times, you know? And basically what this book is about, if nobody knows what this book is about, I'll tell you. It's basically about the first son of the President of the United States, Alex. He is thrown into American royalty, essentially, and he gets compared to this guy named Henry, who is an actual prince from England, and they get compared a lot. But then a altercation happens when Henry and Alex do something that is a little bit on the questionable side, and have the tabloids basically being like, oh, what happened there? Like, and it could also potentially cause a global, not really a global war, but just like an internal war with England and the United States, which you don't want that. So in turn, they stage a truce between the two rivals, basically saying that they have been friends for years and such like that. And as they are spending more time together, Alex realizes that Henry might not be as much of a pompous ass as he thought. And you just kind of follow from there. After also this reread, I gave it a 6-star. I never realized how many beautiful quotes were in here, how many funny things were in here. And I also watched the movie after finishing the book. And I also realized how much they took out of the book to fit the movie, which makes sense. Makes sense, you know? But one crucial character that's in this book was not featured in the movie, which I'm still very pissed about that, but I can understand why they didn't have her a part of the movie. When you read the book and then watch the movie, you won't know. You will know exactly who I'm talking about with this, but specifically the things that I really loved about this book, the chemistry. Oh my God, I loved Alex and Henry's chemistry because one of their main communication styles, since they're across the pond, is text messages and emails. My God, some of those emails had me swooning. And it was just so fun to be able to see them kind of like fall in love over this period and such like that. And then, of course, with the ever growing stuff of like, you know, Henry is a prince. It is not very custom for princes. Basically, princes can't be gay a lot of the time because of like old English like talk and old English stereotypes. So they have to navigate through that. And I would 100% recommend it to someone. It is adult, I will say that. But so many people say that this is spicy. They had maybe like 2 or 3 spice scenes maximum, I would say. There's not a lot of spice in this, which is really, really nice. It's really, really nice that there's not a lot of spice in it too. So if spice like turns you away, you can kind of skim it essentially, you know? So I will say that, but I really did love this reread of Red, White, and Royal Blue. It was so great. It was so great. Okay, and then the next one I actually read in my 24-hour readathon, and it was first introduction to me with cowboy romances. We have Lawless by Elsie Silver. I gave this a 4-star. I did not expect to like it as much as I did, but her writing almost kind of reminded me of Anna, but just with a little bit more crassness. Was that a word? Maybe it's a word. I don't know, honestly. You would think that I would know since I'm an English major, but the way that like Elsie wrote with Rhett and Summer was something that like I said, it was very crass, it was very funny, it was very entertaining. And basically what this book is, it's the first in the Chestnut Springs series, which I feel like everybody and their brother has read this series, and I'm the only one who has not read this series yet. And it's not my goal to get through this entire series, because with interconnected standalones, I usually like to take my time with them. So I'll always take time with like this series, but like I said, I'm very late to the game when it comes to Chestnut Springs. I kind of want to catch up. I know I'm not going to catch up before Wildcard by Elsie Silver comes out, which is a part of her Rose Hill series, but I am destined to get through Chestnut Springs because this one set the tone for the rest of the books, and I'm really kind of excited to dive into them. And since I know that they're going to be interconnected standalones, I know not to go into each one with expectations, but I do have a love for a certain character that's going to be in the next book, specifically Summer's best friend Willa. That's her book, and I believe it's also Kate's book as well too, which he's a single dad. And I don't know, I've never really read any single dad romances before, so we shall see if I like Heartless. But for Flawless, 4-star, solid 4-star. I would recommend it if you are wanting to get into cowboy romances. Even though I've read the first book in the series, I would recommend it. It's a really easy way to understand the world of cowboy romances and kind of like understand what the tones are for that specific niche of romance, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Moving on to a little bit of a different toned book, also in the same 24-hour readathon, we have The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers with Alex Keister, I think is actually how you pronounce her name. I gave it a 3.5 in the moment, but if I gave it a 3.5 in the moment. I don't know if I would change it, but I was low-key looking at my stats for this before ever starting recording this video, and I forgot that I read this book. I'm not gonna lie. I forgot that I read it, and the moment I knew I was entertained, y'all can probably see that in the video if you go back and watch the 24-hour readathon. You'll get my thoughts a little bit more in that video. But with this, it was just okay. This isn't the first book that I read by this author. I read All Good People Here by her. Really, really liked that one. And I think I gave that one a 5-star back in like 2022 when I was really early on getting back into reading. But I don't know if I would give a 5-star now that I have read a lot more books and I know kind of what my like tastes are with also being able to go outside my bubble. But with The Missing Half, it basically follows this girl named Nick. She lost her sister due to her like disappearing like 7 years ago. Nick is kind of like at a dead-end job. She got a DUI, so she's not really doing very good mentally. And then another girl who lost her sister, Jules, her name is Jenna, comes up to Nick and basically says, hey, I'm investigating her sister's disappearances, because a lot of the time when true crime cases are happening, people in law enforcement will try and link together people's disappearances, essentially. So Jenna comes to Nick being like, I want to figure out what happened to my sister. Do you want to join me so that in turn we can find out what happened to your sister? And Nick decides to kind of join in. And it's short. I will say it is a short little book, but I don't really remember all of the details. The ending was just like, okay, I guess. I don't really, now I remember the ending. But yeah, it was just okay. I'd recommend it, but the writing wasn't that good. It felt like it kind of went downhill from All Good People Here. But then again, people might connect with this differently if they have sisters. I personally don't have a sister, so maybe that's what it was missing for me. But it was okay. Not my favorite, and it's just okay. It was just okay, essentially, you know? And then the last book that I read in that video, that 24-hour readathon, was Scarred by Emily McIntyre. this is the second book in the Never After series. This one follows Tristan and what's her name? Sarah. So it follows these two, and it is based a lot around the Lion King, more specifically. And the quote on the back of the book says, "She doesn't belong to him, she belongs to the crown." So it's kind of like a forbidden romance type of vibe. Tristan is not the one sitting for the throne. His brother Michael is, but Michael is very much, how do I say, not a great guy. He's not a great guy whatsoever. He gave a scar to his little brother when they were really, really young, aka Tristan. So he has that like scar on his face that kind of makes him a little bit more alluded to, essentially, you know? And then like he will stop at nothing to end his brother's reign and such, to basically have this secret rebellion try and overthrow his brother. And that's Tristan that I'm talking about. And then this new, and then Michael's new betrothed, Lady Sarah Beatrice, she arrives, and she's kind of a little bit on the like kind of royal side, you know, and she's kind of just infiltrating the castle essentially, and just having that stuff essentially, you know. She has one plan, which is marrying the king and eradicate the Fossa line, and she never expected the scarred prince to be so forbidden, but he's also one of the men that she was sent to kill, and basically is kind of following a little bit of like not a cat and mouse thing. I would say it more follows around like two people who want to eradicate Michael essentially, you know. And I liked it was good. I really, really liked the storyline. I liked it a lot better than Hooked. It gave me a lot like better feelings. I don't know if I should say better feelings, but with Scarred, I remember a lot more of the details than I do with Hooked. I remember with Hooked, I had a like good time, but I can't tell you a single plot point of that book. But with this one, if I wanted to do spoilers, I could 100% tell you every single thing of the plot. I gave it a 4-star. I don't know if I said that at the beginning or not, but I gave it a 4-star, and I really, really liked it. I have the third book and the fourth book on my shelves. The third book is on my TBR cart. That's actually on my February TBR. Not my February TBR, my fall TBR. I don't know why I'm going back in time, but it's on my fall TBR to just get to whenever in these next months, essentially. But Scarred, 4-star. Really, really liked it. And then next one that is in a series that I was extremely, extremely disappointed by. We have The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I read this and gave it a 2-star. Like, I read the first 4 novellas, and then I just completely skipped to the end of the 5th and final one. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't like this book in general is because I think I did it the wrong way. I feel like I should have read this one first and then go into Throne of Glass, Caught of Midnight, and then the rest of the series. But in turn, I just did not end up liking it. I don't know what else to say. Selena is... I don't know how to feel about her. She's okay, I guess. I kind of liked her a little bit more at the end of Air Fire, but like, I can't come up with a good thing. Oh, okay, I can come up with one good thing. And which one was it? Let me look at the novellas because I can't remember. Oh, yes, it was The Assassin in the Desert. The Assassin in the Desert, that one was not too bad. I liked some of the female friendships that came out of it, and it was fun to kind of see a little bit of how Selena became who she is, but also at the same time, it was very lackluster. And I get it. They're prequel novellas, but if I were to go back to myself at the beginning of the year and say, instead of reading Throne of Glass, I should read this, I will 100% would. But also, in turn, I'm not going to be continuing this series, and I will get into a little bit more details as to why I'm not continuing this series when I get into the DNFs and still currently reading list, essentially. But those are all my thoughts I have on The Assassin's Blade. 2 stars. It just wasn't great. It was not great. And then I had much better luck with this next book, which is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. Gave this a 6-star. Holy shit, this was good. This is one of the best thrillers I think I have ever read in my entire life. So basically what it is it follows this girl named Emma Carpenter. She's basically living in a home, she's basically living in isolation with her golden retriever, Leica. She is house sitting essentially. And then she reads this really, really bad thriller book and gives it a 1-star. Then she gets into a little bit of online interactions with the author, and then some strange things kind of start happening around the house, and she realizes that I think the author is kind of after me. And oh my god, it made me cry just like a little bit. I didn't like cry too much, but it was like one of those things where it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like for me, and I also said this in my Let's Finish My July TBR video, I believe, it's one of those things when it comes to thrillers, I usually like to let the story tell itself unless I'm not having a good time. Like if I'm not having a good time, I will more than likely try and guess what the plot twist is gonna be because I'm just kind of like bored-ish, you know, even if I am kind of liking it. But this one, I could not guess the plot twist like coming from a mile away just because of how it was written. Like if you love thrillers but have found them to be very, very predictable and you haven't read this book yet, read it. You will not be able to predict anything. I mean anything. And I've read many thrillers in my day, and I wasn't able to predict a single fucking thing when it came to this book. And it's just like, wow. And there's a surprise element to this story that I was like, oh, wait, oh my God, wait, we're doing this? I'm like, and the story was like, yeah, we're doing this. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. It was just so fun. It was just so fun. I would 100% recommend The Last Word. It is one of my favorite thrillers that I think I have read this year. And now, my friends, we are getting on to the last book that I read in July, which in turn is my favorite book that I think I have ever read of all time. We Love Happiness Spirit by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm going to try and keep this as short as I possibly can, but I loved this book so much. I felt like I've put all of my thoughts and feelings into my finishing up my July TBR video. So I feel like I have said everything I've needed to say about this book, but again, what this book is about is basically about this woman named Joan Goodwin. She's always been obsessed with the stars for as long as she can possibly remember. She's content with her life as a professor of physics and astronomy, and she's also the aunt to her wonderful niece, Frances. But then she comes across an advertisement that's seeking the first women scientists to join NASA's space shuttle program, and she gets in. And then being selected from thousands of candidates for this, in the summer of 1980, Joan begins her training at Houston's Johnson Space Center, along with a handful of fellow candidates: Top Gun pilot Hank Redmond and scientist John Griffin, easygoing even when the stakes are high mission specialist Lydia Danes, who has worked too hard to play nice, warm-hearted Donna Fitzgerald, navigating her own secrets, and Vanessa Ford, the magnetic and mysterious astronomical engineer who can fix any engine and fly any plane. She becomes unlikely friends with so many people, and she also finds a love that she never imagined. And then in December of 1984, on a mission, specifically STSLR 9, everything changes in an instant. And just go into that with this, like with the blurb that I just said, and it doesn't even oh my, I'm just at a loss for words for how gorgeous this book is. It literally gave me heart palpitations near the end. I almost cried while listening to this at work. I listened to the audiobook at this work for most of it, and I almost cried multiple times. I left maybe the last 100 pages to read with you guys, and you guys saw me sobbing. You guys saw me sobbing at this book. It was just, I don't know how else to convince you other than that, besides all of the quotes, all of the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful quotes, essentially. It is just, it's one of those books where you can describe so easily, but also at the same time you can't. And this is literally my favorite book that I have ever read. I can't even put a number to how many stars I would give it. I would give it 5 million stars, but I will give it infinity stars, essentially. I will give it infinity stars because that's what this book deserves. That is exactly what this book deserves. I don't know how else I can convince you to read it. Just read it. Read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and then go back in her backlist and read more of her books. That's what I plan on doing, at least. So that is the end that I have for July. Now, going into my August books, more specifically, the first one that I finished in August is The Striker by Anna Huang. I gave this a 4-star. I really, really, really liked it. I really liked it. My only qualm with this, and I talked about this heavily in the reading vlog that I read it in, was the length. It was way too long, in my opinion. There were some things that I felt could have been cut out and we would have been fine. But Anna is very much a prolific writer. So, and most people know, her devout fans, people are going to read anything this woman puts out, including me. I will read anything this woman puts out. It is also her first introduction into sports romance. She has a second book coming out later in October, so that's on my reading radar as well too. I have that going on. And with this one, it follows Asher Donovan and Scarlett Dubois. We've seen Asher a lot of times within the Annaverse. He's been talked about multiple times. He's many of the ladies' celebrity crushes, and of course the men are why does he deserve to be your celebrity crush, And you can just tell that the men are just down bad for their girls. And we finally get to see Asher and get to see his love story, which I think is so fun. I think it's so fun that we were able to see him getting his love story, because I never really had too much of an attachment to Asher. I knew his name, obviously, and getting to know him through, obviously, The Striker, it was really nice. It was really nice to kind of understand who he is, why he was the way he is, essentially, and that type of stuff, essentially, And then also being able to see Scarlett and also being able to see Dance, because I feel with a lot of books, we don't get to see a lot of representation with Dance, and it was really nice to see Scarlett, who's a former prima ballerina, and she was a dancer, but then her career was cut short due to a really bad car accident, unfortunately. It was really, really nice to be able to see lots of the dancing aspect. I wish there was more talk about the dancing aspect. That's the only, two things now, the length and the lack of dance talk, if that makes any sense, So those are my only qualms with that. But it was a 4-star. Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. And then the next book that I finished after that is If It Bleeds by Stephen King. This is a 3-star. It was okay. It's made up of 4 different novellas. And the first one is Mr. Harrigan's Phone. That one's my favorite out of all of them. Then The Life of Chuck, which was okay. If It Bleeds was just fine as well too, and I didn't even read Rat. I was so done reading it that I was just I'm done. I'm not gonna read Rat anymore. So it's a 3-star for me personally. I don't know why. I just didn't feel the only story that I really felt Stephen King's finesse in his personality was Mr. Harrigan's Phone. I didn't really feel it in the other ones very much. I mean, If It Bleeds is talking about Holly Gimney and her story is of also facing another outsider. And if any of you guys have read The Outsider, you guys will know exactly what I mean by that. And it was just fine, I guess. I don't really remember like much of it. I really don't. I don't remember too much about this book. This one's a little bit on the shorter side, but what are you gonna do, you know? And then getting to my favorite of the month, we have Scythe Sparrow by Bryn Weaver. Gave this a 4.5 stars. I love this. I was really worried that I wasn't gonna like this that much because Leather and Lark left me extremely disappointed. But then as soon as I picked up this book and I got into the mindsets of Rose and Fionn, I was like, we are back. We are back, baby. Like, we are so back, which I loved. I think these two are my favorite of the couples personally. Like, this is also my favorite in the series in general. And it was just so fun to read because obviously you have Fionn. He's the youngest of the Kane brothers. He is a doctor and he's trying to kind of like suppress his darker side. But then Rose comes up in his life. She has pretty much been in the circus essentially with Silveria Circus, and she likes to indulge in a little bit of murder, but then one of her kills goes wrong and she ends up with a broken leg and she ends up at Fionn's clinic. So, and then turn Fionn becomes her doctor. She's recovering in this little town in Nebraska. They have some feelings for each other. They kind of set up a friends with benefits type of situation, and you follow them through there more specifically. And it was overall really, really cute. I will say, check the trigger warnings because there is a lot of trigger warnings in this book. At the beginning of each of the books in the Ruinous Love trilogy, Bryn always has a content and triggers warning. I can't hold it too much. I can't hold it up too much because that would not be good. That could be, I'm not monetizing these videos yet because I'm not close to that. But, you know, I'm trying to get used to not showing it too much. So I have that, and it was so fun. It was so nice. The third act conflict was a little bit of like okay, did we really have to rip my heart out like that, you know? It was one of those things where it didn't quite get a 5-star, mostly because of that. Didn't get it because of that. And of course, the ending was gorgeous. It was just so fun. It was a beautiful way to end off like this book and end off with the trilogy as well too. It's a 4.5, but technically that's not the true end to the trilogy. She came out with a little novella called Love and Other Killers, which basically talks about the annual Kane family's multiple deleting excursions and such. So each year, the serial killer family basically goes out and kills an elusive serial killer, essentially. And this is the first time they're ever doing it with a family. It's narrated by Stallone, so we get her point of view. It's a really, really short novella. It's like 61 pages. It's not that long. We get to see all of the characters again, and then in turn we get a little bit of like what it's like for happily ever after. We get a little thing of basically seeing like, yeah, what is their happily ever after? What does happily ever after look like? And it also set the tone for the next like series that she's doing, which I believe is the book in that, the first book in that series is coming out soon. It's tourist season, but I can't remember what that trilogy is called off the top of my head. But it was so fun to read this little novella. I read it in like a setting with like, I was going to a doctor's appointment. I had to get a couple of shots for this new medication that I'm going on related to my allergies. And I basically read it in one sitting while I was making sure that I didn't have any allergic reactions to the medicine that they were giving me, essentially. It was a 4-star. I really, really liked it. It was a fun little thing, fun little novella to kind of end it off. You don't have to read it if you don't want to, because Scythe Sparrow does a really good job at like being like, we're done, you know, especially with the epilogues and such. Does a really, really, really good job at like saying like, yeah, we are done with these characters now. They have all gotten their happily ever afters like they should, which I think is great. And then another one that I don't have in the physical copy is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Adler-10. And this is a memoir, and you guys know I don't rate nonfiction. I used to, but now I don't because it just seems weird to rate nonfiction books, and especially memoirs, which this is a memoir. It feels weird rating somebody's life. But if I were to give it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 3. I don't really remember much. I remember going in for the advice, but I stayed for the entertainment level of her life, because it's like, wow, she had a lot of stuff go down in her life, and she's only like in her like 30s, I think. She's a fairly young woman. It was one of those things where I'm just like, oh wow, that was real? Like, you actually went through that. So yeah, it was very entertaining to read. I don't have many things to say about it because I don't really remember what she talked about. Really, I listened to this in the audiobook format because that's how I mostly do things with nonfiction books specifically. So I have not too much to say. Well, actually, besides like the little recipes we got here and there, I don't have anything else to say really about the book. I don't think I'm going to get it in the physical copy. Love and Other Killers you can't get in the physical copy, but I'm not going to get everything I know about Love in the physical copy personally. I don't think I need it. I don't think I need it on my shelf. So that's that. And then the last book that I finished off in August was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I gave this a 4-star, and I mostly listened to this, and it was so cute. It was so fun. It was so funny. It was also a little bit sad at times as well too. And dare I say, it's a little gay. Oh God, I'm not too good at jokes. But anyways, this one basically is a little like urban fantasy type of vibes, and the back of it basically says, "Welcome to Kayron's Crossing. The tea is hot, the scones are fresh, and the dead are just passing through." So you follow our main character, Wallace. A Reaper basically comes to collect Wallace at his funeral. He realizes that he's dead, and then when Hugo, the owner of a peculiar tea shop, promises to help him cross over, Wallace decides that he's definitely dead. But even in death, he's not really ready to abandon the life he barely lived. So when Wallace is given 1 week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in 7 days. And I really, really liked it. It was one of those things where it was like a fun little fantasy. You didn't have to worry about too much. It obviously talks a lot about death. So if you have triggers regarding like death and that type of stuff, this is not the book for you, because it heavily talks about death. There's also a little bit of a male-on-male romance in here. I'm pretty sure y'all can figure that out. But it was so nice to read. And at the beginning, Wallace is kind of like an asshole essentially, but then as you go on through the book, you will kind of see that he's not quite an asshole. It takes time. You'll need to read it. You'll need to read it to understand what I mean by that specifically. Yeah, and also like at the bottom, it literally says like death is only their beginning. And that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. But those are basically all the books that I read in, what's this, last month? August. Oh my God. And basically, next thing I kind of want to dive into is my still currently reading in my DNF category. So for DNFs more specifically, I did a hard DNF of Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I DNF'd that at the 12% mark. Every time I tried to pick up the audiobook, I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I didn't want to. It was just one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of DNF it. Maybe I'll go back to the series, but right now I don't care if I get spoilers for the series. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. But right now I'm not looking at finishing the Throne of Glass series anytime soon. And maybe y'all can convince me if I should read it, but right now I'm just like, no. And then another one that I kind of soft DNF'd was Summer in the City by Alex Asher. That was on my August TBR, which I did not get to that one, which I tried to read it. I really did. I read it. I tried to read it when I went on a trip with one of my friends from like high school, middle school age, like that's how we became friends mostly. And we were driving over to a Big Time Rush concert in Kansas City. And I I tried to read it. I really did, but it just wasn't calling to me. It wasn't calling to me, and it was just like one of those things where I'm just like, okay, I guess, you know? So I will probably come back to that maybe next summer, but I'm not too sure. And then I have a lot of books that I am still reading and currently reading. But the one that I kind of want to talk about the most that I'm currently reading right now is Loveless by Alice Oseman. I'm mostly listening to that while also doing a little bit of immersive reading as well. And I am really liking the story so far. I'm only like 50, 60 pages in, so I can't really say too much about it, but it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what, this is really cute. Like, this is really, really cute. And it's not like a romance or anything. It's called Loveless for a reason. It explores a girl named Georgia. She is kind of figuring out like what she likes and who she likes, and while she's up at college, she kind of discovers what the A in LGBTQIA plus means, and she's discovering that she might be asexual and realizing that it's a-okay to be asexual. And I personally want to read about it because I have known a couple of asexual people in my life, but I've known like the basic premise of it. Like, I've never seen anybody actually go through a crisis of what it's like to be asexual or figuring out that they are asexual. So hopefully when reading this, I will be able to understand how that comes across and how people who think about that sexuality and such like that feel that way, you know? So it's a really kind of fun thing. Of course, it's got Alice Oseman's signature flair. I love their writing style so much. They are so fun to read. It's really, really great. But that is all I have for you guys, essentially. So thank you guys again so much for watching. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books, if any of them I've convinced you to put them on your TBR. Just let me know. And as a little like thing and such, why don't you leave me, is there a deer emoji? No, I won't do a deer emoji. I will do a door emoji. Leave me a door emoji for Under the Whispering Door if you've made it this far to the end of the video. Again, thank you guys again so much for watching. All of my stuff is in the description down below. You can check it out below the video right now, or you can check it out at the end. But I hope you guys have an amazing day, week, month, and year. See you later, friends. Hopefully you guys are picking this. Hello?
Hello, could you have your mom bring some paper towels out here to the end of the driveway?
Yeah, sure.
I'm out here butchering on this tree and I took a stick to the hand and it's bleeding pretty good.
Oh, shit, that's not good.